All right, everybody. Well, good morning. And Andy, I don't know about you. I'm super excited to be here this morning. It feels like it's been many months in the making, and I'm super excited that this group gets to get their first look at thinQ. Yeah, everybody, Andy Constantino, he's our sales engineer. Andy, welcome to our webinar today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, so Andy and I are going to give you that first look along with some context about why do we choose to create thinQ. What are the solutions that are included inside of it? How does it all work? What's new? What's enhanced? I know I've seen, based on the list of participants so far, there's a lot of folks that have been with Think potentially for almost our entire 10 years of our existence, which that's our hashtag 10 years. Part of this launch is also us celebrating our 10 years in business, which is hard for, I think, some of the folks who have been with us from the beginning to believe that it's been 10 years, but it's true. So I think it's only appropriate that as we get ready for 2021 and our 11th year, that this becomes our primary platform, and we launch our new APIs to really bring everything together for really the exciting next evolution for Think. But before I go much farther, I really want to know who's on the call. I'm going to pop up a poll here real quick, and would love for you to fill it out. So click all the solutions that you're getting from us, please. Are you getting inbound from us? That means, are you buying phone numbers? Porting, provisioning numbers over to us. You do outbound, our least cost routing, our 40, plus carriers. Do you do SMS, MMS? Do you do CNAM, LRN, E911? You see the list. So if you could, go ahead and fill that out. And I'd love to, love to see, oh, I'm sorry. I have to click the launch poll button. That would really help, Andy, if I hit that button so people can see it. But there you go. So if you could, guys, just fill in, just click the buttons next to the solutions that you get today. And Andy, I'm not surprised. The first couple votes were all outbound. That's
of
great.
Course.
We knew the outbounders were going to be the most excited about this. Oh, but you know what? We just equaled out. So wow, this is great. A lot of participation here. Going to give it another 5 or 10 seconds. So yeah, look at that.
Almost 100%.
Yeah, so we are evenly split, Andy, between inbound and outbound. Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Only one person for SMS on this call, and that's okay, because to be honest, really, the core of why thinQ exists, we're bringing together inbound and our outbound platforms. So that's good to see. And by the way, third place is CNAM. Andy, I know we've gotten a lot of folks that really use that solution. So that's really good to know. So now that we know, I'm going to hit share just so you guys can see it there. That's the winner is outbound, so you can see who's on the call with us today. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and roll in here. I'm going to stop sharing that, and we'll roll on. So I want to, guys, first give you some context of what we've seen at Think over the last 10 years. And even previous to that, about how the world has changed, and then bring you right into the platform. And again, we really want to keep this to 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes. If you can, use that chat box, please, for your questions as we go. And Andy will be here to answer those, or I can answer them as they come across. But to start with, guys, I really want to be clear that we all feel this, that we now live in a cloud economy, right? And we've seen over the years, the business cycles changing, basically the existence of the cloud coming in as we've gone through the last 10 years has completely altered the economy and how VoIP, voice and SMS providers function out here in our current economy. So it's hard to believe, but it hasn't been that long. It's been about 30 years since these telephone booths were a staple in New York City. So in the New York City metropolitan area back in 1990, which I don't know about you, Andy, feels like about 15 minutes ago, there were 3.2 million payphones. Yeah, ask anybody under the age of 20 now what a payphone is. They'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just see those in movies. That's very quaint. But what's been interesting is, and again, as the cycles have changed and as the cloud economy has hit, as of 2019, there were only 4 in Manhattan and the outer boroughs. What's funny is, I haven't been to New York in a couple of years, but if you drive through there now in any way, you'll actually see that they've converted a lot of these payphones into places where people can stand or sit to be on their cell phone. And it still looks like a payphone, but it sure isn't being used as a payphone. It's being used as a shelter for people to use their smartphones. And that brings us to the telephone. And I don't know about you, Andy, but man, I can't imagine, in 1957, this image probably was groundbreaking for people who saw it. It's not showing off the new iPhone like we have today. It's this push button telephone. Imagine 1957. Wait, there's going to be a push button telephone? That's amazing. So we went from sort of the hand crank, hold it up to your ear era to obviously the receiver to push buttons, and went from, pulse to tone, all those good things. And, this evolution has continued. And we've gone from that to now in 2020, 2.7 billion smartphone users, all of them. Again, if you have a smartphone, you are connected to this cloud, and it has revolutionized all aspects of our economy, as well as how we communicate. And, nowadays, I don't know about you, but I have a son here, let's go UNC. Here we go, wearing the colors. He would much rather text than call. In fact, he routinely says, "Don't call me, text me, Dad." I'm like, okay, I get it. And don't get me started on whether the youngins like email or not. They don't. But that's just something that has changed over time. And if we also go back into the 50s, these two things on the left and on the right were also the norm. You can see here, this is a 5 megabyte storage device being put onto a Pan Am flight, which obviously neither of these things exist anymore. And roughly, again, $350,000 for a 5 megabyte storage device. And also slightly more expensive than 350, but pretty close, was one of the first phone switches on the right-hand side. So again, hardware. That's where we started, right? Before this cloud thing came along, before the internet took over with the ones and zeros and interconnected us all. In fact, if we take this to the next level, if we look at storage, phone switches in general, now today you can pay $3 for 3 gigabytes of storage in the cloud. And it also gives you this global connectivity. So not only can you put it into the cloud, you can also share it and route it to anybody that you'd like. So what I like to say, guys, is that everything has changed thanks to the cloud economy, but nothing has changed, right? We still need to complete phone calls with our customers, our partners. We still need to reach them with all different forms of communication, including text messaging now, as well as video, of course. That's also another big thing that we do. But if we say everything has changed, nothing has changed, I think I want to sort of go through sort of the things that we hear from our customers every day. And the first thing is that price matters, but it doesn't matter. Sounds strange to say that, but I think most people who are involved in the messaging, world understand that the lowest cost isn't always the best solution, right? What they need instead is a system, a platform, APIs to make sure that they're not overpaying for their communications, voice or SMS, but also getting all the different things that helps them, provide the service and do things, for instance, like make better decisions, right? What if we could not only route our calls at a really great price, but also use it to make better decisions? If a given carrier has an issue on a given day, are the tools available to make a better decision to take them out of route temporarily to make sure that calls and text messages are completed? I'd say yes. That's one of the great things that the cloud gives us, is not just a hardware pipe into one carrier, or maybe two if you're lucky enough to have that hardware backup, but instead many dozens more. In fact, how about 40, right? So in the cloud, we really have the ability to create this network, this layer of carrier, not only backup, but also high quality calls among carriers that are very thoughtfully vetted, deeply vetted, and allow us this flexibility, again, to make better decisions about what types of carriers we're putting in route. Are they best for high volume? Are they best for, conversational traffic? All the different things that we can now do thanks to the power of the cloud. So 40 carriers, great, but also total control. And again, I already mentioned that one of the things that the cloud allows you to do is not only be able to choose which of those 40 carriers you want to route your voice traffic through, but also control which ones get that traffic and which ones do not, given not only a service issue, but also just a quality issue. Because we know that there are local issues where we may hear, if you guys are running a contact center, hey, I'm making calls into a given location and I'm having quality issues. I can't deliver calls there, whatever it is. I know that there's an outage. We can't complete calls. What if you could go into a platform or use an API to, again, take that carrier out of route, make sure that the calls start completing again, all without filing a ticket? And I just mentioned the APIs. So not only is a web platform a great starting point for a lot of folks who use, thinQ and a lot of these cloud communication tools, but APIs actually are really sort of that next generation use case for what it is that we do, voice and messaging. So instead of using, again, a web platform, you can actually program it into an existing IVR system to replace, your settings in a SIP trunk to be able to route your traffic across these 40 plus carriers. APIs are critical, especially if you have any sort of an application that uses voice or messaging. And I love this, thinQ automated savings. Here at thinQ, we're the pioneers of toll-free least cost routing with 5 levels of disaster recovery and mitigation, so that if a call doesn't complete through one toll-free carrier, you've got 4 more that you can turn on and allow that call to be completed. Or if there's any sort of an outage, you can take somebody out temporarily and put them back in later. But what's great about the least cost routing technology that we developed and we've been offering for 10 years now is that it automates savings. So we actually do lots of rate updates every month to make sure that you don't even have to think about it. Not only do we handle the negotiations with 40 carriers, all 5 primary toll-free carriers, but we also make sure that the pricing is updated. You're always paying the best possible price. And by the way, when I say pricing update, this is a big part of what our team does, is many millions of lines of pricing are updated every single month inside of our platform to automate savings for you so that you pay the best possible price. And possibly, Andy, one of my most favorite slides, because people love this, is thinQ no or very little support tickets. So what thinQ has really done is allowed you to, kind of put pricing aside for a moment and say, what if you could have this automated savings system with 40 carriers, all 5 toll-free carriers, CNAM, LRN, all the tools that you need to make sure that you're getting the best possible price for every call, the highest quality, for each of those calls, but also give you the tools to be able to do a lot of these things yourself. Whereas in the past, you were probably used to filing a support ticket. Hey, we're having quality issues with a call, on this route with this carrier. And, traditionally it would take days, or if you're lucky, you get a response. And like, oh, don't worry about it, we fixed it. And you have no idea, well, who was the carrier? What was the route? What was the problem? And you really felt sort of, not able to be in control of your own destiny. Well, with thinQ and with our APIs, you can lessen your support tickets. But if you need that support, we've got a great support team that you can call, that you can email. You can file those tickets and get a quick response to any issue that you have. But we'd rather you not have any support tickets, or as few as possible, because we want to give you the tools to be successful on your own. And if we talk about the types of customers who use thinQ, I know there's a lot of you I can see on the call who are some of our traditional sort of telecom provider customers. We love you guys to death. We also have 3 other types of customers that use us today. We call them SaaS companies. These are marketing and sales platforms who need a way to sort of swap and swap out their telecom choices that folks like Twilio and Plevo give them with our 40 carriers and our automated savings technology and all of our tools. So they don't have to file tickets when they have call quality issues or outages. That's our SaaS customers. And you can see here Richard Nolan with TrackDrive, one of our favorite customers here, who was trying to scale with the SaaS platform and couldn't do it economically. He chose thinQ. He's been very happy. In the middle, one of the top 5 airlines turned us on and really wanted to use us, get the Restborg-like flexibility that they wanted for toll-free, and give them complete control, of their communications, especially toll-free, and also do something like follow the sun, where they can actually move their calls between disparate contact centers, and that was available with thinQ. And lastly, James over here, he used to run a very high volume contact center and now works for Morissette Paper Company, brought us in to help him save 80% on his enterprise VoIP communications. Very happy with us as well, and loves that outage mitigation whenever there's an issue, which doesn't happen very often. You can turn those carriers on and off based on who the folks at Morissette have to call. So with that, guys, that's to give you the background. We now live in this cloud economy. thinQ is an entirely cloud provided service for you, in that we have multiple ways to get your voice and messaging traffic out there across this lovely internet, this cloud. I want to give you guys some context on what's happening with our portal. So because we're evenly split between inbound and outbound, it's important to get this out here. So first is, we know a lot of you do inbound and text messaging on i.thinq.com. So we have 2 portals today. I'm sorry, two portals. I.think. We also have lcr.think.com, and that's for outbound. That's where our least cost routing lives. So today, a lot of you are logging into two different portals to do your inbound and your outbound. So what's happening? Well, we're combining those two together, and technically we're doing it inside of I.think. That's the sort of the look and feel that you can expect. And we're also, one of the nice things is we're bringing over all of your login information, all of your credentials, and all of your settings from lcr.think and putting it into thinQ. So you don't have to do anything. It'll be mimicked between lcr.think.com and thinQ for a short period before thinQ becomes our default platform. So I hope that makes sense. You guys don't have to do anything. The logins are identical. You'll just start going to thinQ on a given timetable. So let me give you an idea what that is. So we mentioned that it's available on November 5th, and it is for our inbound folks, right, on November 5th. So what'll happen on November 5th is that instead of going, when you type I.think.com, you'll go to think.io. And what you'll find inside of there, obviously, is all of the inbound features that you've come to love. If you also have outbound, those outbound features will also be turned on at that time. You'll also see that inbound and outbound billing, invoices, and payments, all those will be able to be done inside of thinQ and lcr.think.com. And don't worry, if you prefer to continue using lcr.think.com and pay your bill over there, that's fine. It'll automatically be reflected inside of thinQ. So you don't have to worry about making changes in two different sites. It's basically using the same data set on both for a short time period while we make this transition. So November 5th is the inbound launch. December 3rd is the outbound launch. And that's where, again, everybody's credentials and settings from lcr.think will be migrated into think.io. And and that doesn't mean that lcr.think.com is going away. Initially, it's not. Our plan is sometime in Q1 to sunset lcr.think.com. So at that time, you'll type in LCR and it'll go to thinQ. And you're going to get a chance to see it in a second, where you'll see the inbound and the outbound, all the different settings down the left-hand side. And it'll all be in one place, and it'll all have the same feature functionality along with all the new things that we're about to show you in one place. The other thing to keep in mind too is we obviously have big plans for additional updates and changes that we want to make and make available to you. One of them is we want to be able to combine those two bills together, inbound and outbound, something I know you all have asked for equally strongly, both, hey, can you combine those platforms? We got you there. How about combining my bill and making, giving me some additional billing features? Those are in development now and will roll out as we get into early next year, and you'll see announcements about that. So I hope that makes sense. That's how we're bringing I.think and lcr.think together inside of thinQ. So with that, I want to now hand it over to Andy and say, Andy, here's their first look. This is thinQ. You'll notice on the left, right, Andy, we've got inbound and outbound together, finally, in the same portal.
Oh, isn't that so cool, though? It's think.io.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
I guess, do I have control of this now? Yes, I do. All right.
Actually, that was me, Andy. Hold on one second. Actually, if you don't mind, just go ahead and tell me when you want to move it. It'll just be a little bit easier that way. I'm happy to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So many of you that are using the inbound recognize this as your current login for inbound. What you'll notice is it's the same refreshed look, and this was the look we were going for. We were trying to freshen up the look. The LCR was the very first portal we had, so we wanted to freshen this up a little bit. Go ahead, next one. So if you look, one of the other things that we're missing from the outbound portal is outbound APIs. If you see right here in this API menu option, you can see all the API, well, this is actually the informational. You can see all the outbound APIs have been added in. I'm sure you're familiar with the inbound APIs if you're currently using them. It's the same setup. If you look on the right-hand side, we kind of give you an example. You can view more on the examples, see the changes that you have to make or need to make that affect you directly with your own platform. Next. This is just the login screen. We've seen this 1,000 times. This will continue to be your login screen, but the great thing about this is this will be your login screen for thinQ. Next. First area I wanted to talk about is looking at the routing profiles. As you can see, the routing profiles here already have a nice refreshed look. You're familiar with this. What we want to do is just kind of step through what it looks like to add a routing profile. This view will still be the same. It'll just have these updated appearance. Next. So when you go to add a profile, you can choose location, routing, settings, and we walk you right through it. And this is very similar to before, but it's a lot cleaner look. It's a lot easier, flows better. It has a nicer appearance, and the experience should be much better. And it's the same as usual. You can have a North American plan, an international plan, or you can have a global plan. I selected the North American plan here, and I'm going to select least cost routing. As you recall, in the outbound, if you use prime rate, what that is you set a rate. It's usually, it's the lowest rate. You send a call, you take one shot at routing. If it doesn't go through, we 503 the call back to you. So we're going to look at the least cost routing section here. As you can see, I'm creating a profile here. I called it thinQ_IO_out. Post dial delay set to 10. There's some other things like max rate, number of carriers you can attempt, max rate for before we do a 503 back. Next, please. Now, on this screen, what you see is, Tim had mentioned earlier, talking about 40 carriers, 45 carriers. There's a few things about this screen that make it easier. For one, it's all on the same screen. In a way you can look at it without having to move around a great deal. But we also have arrowed out here, I'm pointing to long distance carriers and high volume carriers. Now, those have very specific uses. The long distance carriers, as you know, we're going to be sending, they're going to be competing for your business for routing, not only quality, but pricing. And typically those things go hand in hand. Take CenturyLink, for example, if you're calling into an area that's dominated by CenturyLink, they have all the fixed lines, they have the infrastructure in place, typically the price is going to be the best. High volume carriers are for shorter duration calls with carriers that won't mind it as much. One of the other functions that we have, as we all know, the highest level of fraud is in the islands. It has been since the dawn of time. I'm not sure why, but that's typically where you see the highest volume of fraud. We have the carriers think offshore. You can deactivate that carrier and you won't send any calls to that part of the islands. Go ahead. Next. You just get a confirmation after you've added all your carriers in. You can add all of them, some of them. Typically we add them all when we first set up the account. We start our interop process. Go ahead. Here's where we create the outbound trunks. Now, if you're on the outbound, you know how to create the trunks. You already know how this is, but in this particular slide, what we're looking at is we have relationships with Nexmo, Plevo, SignalWire, and Twilio. They're bring your own carrier type relationships, and these are connectors that are already built. In this instance, I'm going to choose thinQ because that's who we are, and we want to make sure that we show you how you build a trunk on our network. And it's the same as it's always been. You create a trunk name, you give it a routing profile, channel limit. Now, when we talk about channel limits, by the way, it has 20 in here, but typically what happens is during interrupt, we set the number of channels to 20, and when it comes time to go to production, we'll negotiate that and discuss how many trunks you really need. So that's a flexible a number. And we don't limit the number of profiles or trunks. We just make sure that we have it sized correctly and make sure that that's a discussion and that we are getting profiles correct. Again, down here you add the IP address. You can use IP address. You can use our our other, the service LCR outbound, either location A or B, one or two, or both. You can add additional routes here, or IP addresses. So if one fails, you can route to the next. And that's how you create the trunk. Next. One of the things that we also allow, or we do, that has been freshened up on this screen is everybody's aware of the that if you're using outbound, you can do the diagnostics. In this particular case, you can look at completed or uncompleted calls. And it used to be you would have to put in a date range. It was mandatory. In this particular instance, we've put some quick click in there. You can either do today, yesterday, 48 hours, 5 days, 7 days, what have you, or you can have a use a date range. One of the key factors here, if you're having an issue with the carrier, or you're having an issue with a particular call scenario, you can go into diagnostics, look the call up, and I put an arrow down here for the carrier ID. And that's an important number to remember. So next. You're going to need that in the event that you want to set up a call block or a route block. Tim alluded to that during his opening discussion when he said we have an opportunity, or you have an opportunity, to self-serve when it comes to issues, as opposed to opening trouble tickets, making calls. And in this instance, what we're saying is that you can take a carrier that you feel is either causing problem, or you know is causing problems, out of route without losing the entirety of your routing. You're just losing it to that one carrier. And there's a few ways we can do it. We can either do it as you see on the screen here, which is very clean on the thinQ. I love this. You can do it by MPA NXX, MPA, LATA, State, LATA and OCN, or Rate Center. Next. I chose MPA NXX in this particular instance. And what you're doing is you're just going in and you're looking up the phone number, or not looking up the phone number, you're looking up the MPA NXX. You're putting how long would you like to route block to stay in place. Typically, if a carrier's having a problem, they're going to clear it up within 24 or 48 hours. There's no doubt about that. If it's a carrier that is persistently problem, you can block them forever. It just depends on how long you want to keep them out of the network. The key here is when the route block expires, they'll be put back into routing. Next. In this particular route block I'm setting up, as you can see, we've set up all the carriers. I want to take and do a route block in the profile name thinQ. And if you look down here where I have the where I have the arrow pointed, I have it pointed at AT&T. And what I've done is I've said I want to take them out of route. And no more calls on that profile will go to AT&T. And that's how you set up a route block. Next. So one of the next things I wanted to talk about was, I know in the very beginning in the login screen, you see the inbound thinQ, and that's really not going to change. So here's the screen. It gives you the quick links at the top, get numbers, port in, configure numbers. Also gives you a look at this graph on the front here is powered by the different products that you see up there, whether it's LRN, CNAM, and you can actually see based on the calendar how your traffic is progressing. You can see spikes, things like that, or trends. Next. So one of the big things is getting numbers. You can do numbers one of two ways. You can port them in, or you can actually buy numbers. In this particular case, we want to do an individual search, but you can also do a range of searches, and you can put in the number of DIDs you may need. We can do it by MPA NXX, also by Rate Center. Next. Next one, Tim. Thank you. After you get your DID, now in this particular instance, I used my DID. You can see up right here it says Andy Raleigh. I set up a CNAM for it. I set up a routing preference, and I also put it in service. And when you get a number from thinQ, it's not just getting the number. There are things or features that you can add to a number. E911, SMS, CNAM lookup. Those are things that are very important, and when they're being delivered, you understand their importance because they're being sent to your destinations. E911 is going to become more and more important. There's going to be more restrictions on it, so those are things that you'll have to keep up with as well. SMS is a growing market. We've managed to do a great job of keeping up with the SMS market. We have great engineers that are making sure that our APIs are staying up to date and that these are working. Go ahead next. One of the things I wanted to talk about was porting numbers. This always seems like like it's magic. It's really not. There are two carriers involved. There's a winning carrier and a losing carrier, and there's no other way to say it. That's just the way it is. When you have to port numbers, you're going to have an LOA that's going to be given to the losing carrier, and you're going to take and make a request. Now, if it's a 1 or 2 number request, you can just put it into this field here. If it is a large request where we've got carriers that have ported thousands of numbers, you put in CSV, they upload it, and we treat it as a project and help you schedule your port, help you make sure that you get built, make sure that all your numbers get loaded, and make sure that we follow up with the losing carrier, make sure that they have the LOA, make sure that they release the numbers as expected. Next. And this is just, I wanted to talk briefly, or not briefly, but I just wanted to talk about the APIs and tokens. So when you're using APIs with us, we have a token, we have security in place, we use tokens. And if you look at this, these are the things that you're asking this token to allow. And it just goes through each one of our features, LRN, CNAM, SMS, the inbound features. It allows you to do all those things. And it's just a simple, I think you can go one more screen. Back up one, I'm sorry. What it does is it allows the feature or the activity of the API to be usable. And it lets us know, like any token would, if you see that coming in, this is what this carrier can do, or this is what this customer can do. If you look at the very bottom, at the very edge there, it kind of shows you what one of our tokens looks like. And you can regenerate a token. If you have a token that you feel like is bad or stale, if you need to, you can regenerate a token, or you can create multiple tokens. Next. In this particular slide, what we're doing is it shows you the rate decks, shows you invoices. You can CDR or FTP your CDRs. That's going to remain the same. If you have, when you FTP your CDRs over, you can manipulate that data however you see fit, create your own reporting. It is just a pure CDR. Next. Nope.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Thanks for that overview. I think, I don't know about you, but the first time that I got access to this a couple months ago, it was just so great to see inbound and outbound in the same interface.
I just liked how fresh it was.
Yeah, and it's all, and those workflows that you were showing, how you can go step by step, and there's actually a confirmation screen, which takes you to the next natural step. I think we could kind of call those things quality of life improvements, and I think hoping everybody on the call, because most of you have both, I hope you're excited about it as we are. It's definitely an improvement, and it's going to help you guys, do things more quickly, more efficiently, and that's what it's all about. That's what we're trying to do here. So, by the way, we'd love to take your questions, but before we do, I want to let you guys know that again, if you do have both products, or you'd like to get early access to the outbound features in thinQ ahead of the launch, right, in December, during that month sort of break in between, we'd love for you. You can do this in the chat, or you can actually send a help desk ticket to us, and you just basically need to hear from you that I want early access. to thinKIO outbound, and we need to know your username, your account ID, and it'd be helpful if you could put your name and your email address in there as well. And that's going to literally go right to our product team, who's starting a whitelist of people who can get early access. So you can have all those features turned on, some of the first sets ahead of the migration of everybody from lcr.think.com to thinKIO early in December. So again, best way to do it, guys, is you do it in the chat here. We'll take it out. I'll take it out of the chat and give it to our product manager. But it would really be better if you could just please, send us a help desk ticket. And again, say that you want early access to the outbound features in thinKIO ahead of time, and we need your username, your account ID, and your name and your email address. It's all here on the screen. So with that, I'd like to pop over here, Andy, and see if we have any questions. I see people coming in. Oh, I see people asking for early access. Thank you very much. Andrew, I'll make sure that the team gets that as well.
Okay, great.
That's fine. So two Andy, sorry, Andy. We've got Andy requesting it. Here we're getting lots of, no problem, Andy. We're getting lots of questions. Well, a couple questions here about billing. And I think I should go back to the beginning and say that, yeah, we don't want to confuse you about billing. We know you guys, a lot of you are either prepaid, postpaid, whatever it is. You want to make sure you're paying your bills on time to keep everything flowing. And I just want to remind everybody that, when thinKIO launches next week, the billing will be available inside of thinKIO, which is the new i.think, as well as an lcr.think, and they're both tied to the same data set. So whether you go into, the new thinKIO, if you're inbound, or you go to lcr.think, you're going to basically see, the invoicing that you need to pay those bills, change your payment method, whatever, you basically take care of billing is going to be happening in both places. And as I mentioned, because I know people are asking, how soon are you going to combine those bills? I don't know the answer to that question, except that I know that our team has been working really hard on our combined billing solution, which, as you all can imagine, if you think taxes is interesting and fun to calculate for you guys, for all the work that we do for you, billing is also an interesting thing to tackle. And we're really anxious to make sure that the new updated billing capabilities that we give you is entirely thought through and made available. So it makes it super easy on all of you. And also, by the way, and one of the things too that's new that Andy, I know we didn't show in here because I know they're still working on it, is sort of there's a whole new layer of new notifications that are going to be built into the platform, which is exciting. So you're used to being alerted in specific ways by the portal for things that are going on in your account now, but there's going to be entirely new new notifications that you can control to make sure that you're completely in the know about what's going on with your account. And we also got a question. Tim asked, Andy, this is so weird. We get these questions. So we got a question from Andy and a question from a Tim. How great is that? That's funny. Tim's asking about two-factor authentication. Andy, now I got it messed up. Tim, that's a good question. I think one of the things we want to do is, and that's something our developers are looking at right now, so we can use our own technology to enable two-factor authentication on your login to thinKIO. So they definitely have it on their list. And it was brought up at our last dev meeting as well. So they're very aware of that. I appreciate you pushing for that. I totally agree. We definitely have, CAPTCHA enabled on the page, which actually some people don't like. They get a little annoyed with it. So that's layer one. We definitely we're looking at adding 2FA as well. So with that, Andy, I think that's pretty much all the questions. I think everybody's hopefully stunned into, wow, this is amazing. I can't wait. But if you have any questions, you will be getting, everybody who's on this call, you'll be getting a link to the video recording of this call. You can definitely go back and look through it. And Andy and I are going to be available for any questions that you may have. You can reply to that email. It will come from me. It'll say from Tim McLean. You can reply, and I'll make sure that whether it's a request, for instance, as we mentioned here, to get early access, or a question that we can get answered for you, we will definitely get that to you as fast as we can. So Andy, I know we're going to do this again this afternoon. We're going to do it again tomorrow. It's going to be just as exciting, I think, but we're so excited to have this initial set of almost 87 people are still online. They stayed with us to the end, Andy. That's fantastic.
Excellent.
And we'll, like I said, watch your inbox for additional details. And we appreciate you guys spending your time with us today. Andy, thank you for that. Got your account ID. I'll make sure that we get all that over to the dev team after this call. So with that, Andy and I are here. He's in Think HQ in downtown Raleigh. I'm may or may not be there. Just kidding. I'm at home. We want to say thank you for joining us this morning. Hope you have a wonderful day. And again, really excited to show you guys the first glimpse of thinKIO. So everybody have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon.